What's up, everybody? Welcome into Tom Curran's Patriots Talk Podcast. We got a great one today. We have Andrew Callahan coming in to talk macro issues with the Patriots, what we're seeing, where they're heading. And then we're going to get Evan Lazar from Patriots.com to join. He's going to talk about some of the numbers behind what we're seeing. Are there any reasons for minor optimism? Or is it bleak, 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 bleak? We're going to get those guys in here in just a second. One thing that I wanted to allude to right here out of the top, though, is a tweet that Andrew Callahan posted over the weekend. It's a picture of Alcatraz. Of course, they were in San Francisco, and he wanted to have that picture that he took not go to waste, so he said, "To Alcatraz goes anyone," suggesting the Patriots shouldn't have drafted Drake Maye. Let's get Andrew in here to explain himself. Why? Why do you say that?
Well, Tom, I got to tell you, if I wanted to tell you that, I would have just texted you. I got this immaculate picture of Alcatraz. You got the fog. It's creepy. And when I sent that tweet, I was killing time sipping a beer before a San Francisco Giants game. So I said, I need a place to put this picture. But also, the conversation has got so crazy around this. And May, separate from the tweet, I go, okay, this is how I want to put it. So we're like half a beer deep. We're thinking about Drake Maye, how crazy things have gotten on Pat's Twitter, and I guess that was just more gas on the flames.
But all that said, we have crossed swords more than once about this. And you, I know, privately and respectfully, roll your eyes every time you see me kicking rocks about the fact that the Patriots stayed put and didn't try and maximize that pick. And I want you to articulate what I'm trying to say. See, this is a good way of conflict resolution. Articulate what my misgiving is.
So your misgiving is you have this number 3 pick in a draft with 3 highly sought after quarterback prospects. You have teams willing to come up to you, give you multiple first round picks. And instead of taking those assets and converting them potentially into a starting wide receiver, which you can't sign anymore in free agency, a starting left tackle, which the Patriots have not signed in free agency the last 2 years, you stayed there and took a quarterback whose performance is entirely really dependent on those 2 positions when you extrapolate out a whole offensive line and, of course, the receivers who he's throwing to. And you won't be able to play that guy because you don't have enough in the cupboard at receiver or offensive line. So we all do this waiting game when instead, in your mind, Tom Curran, under that handsome hair, of which I'm very jealous, that they could have drafted a quarterback later in that draft or next year, and in the meanwhile, built up that cupboard a little bit.
And your point is simple. How often are you at the top of the draft? To get great players, you take them before anybody else has a chance to take them. And if you're sitting pretty at number 3 and you have a guy who wasn't just good for 15 minutes, but was one of the best quarterbacks in college football the previous year, you don't look a gift horse in the mouth. You get him now. My contention, though, is that you are wasting his time as you waste your time. And you may never see the fruits of it because your team is so bad. Now, we could talk about divvying up the blame. Is it on Eliot Wolf, Matt Crow, Bill Belichick, Nick Caserio? Do you want to give it to Matt Patricia? Lob it all on Mayo? Whoever gets the blame, AVP. The point is, it's a bad team, and it's going to remain a fairly bad team, which means you're going to winnow away the ability to maximize that position because the other positions still stink.
Yeah, my argument would be this is 1 year out of a 5-year contract where he's going to be a huge deal. So that's 20%, sure. But in the meantime, you still get to develop him, as we were talking about. And even if this team was ready, they might have said, we want you to develop anyway, because we know where Eliot Wolf came from. We know where Alex Van Pelt spent the biggest chunk of his career in Green Bay, where patience grows and then pays off, specifically at the quarterback position. Now, granted, the rosters there were different for Aaron Rodgers and now Jordan Love. They're different players than Drake Maye. But even when he was drafted, anyone listening, anyone studying the tape like I was, like Phil was, goes, okay, he's not a project, but he's someone who needs a little bit more seasoning. This might have been the plan anyway, even if they were ready to protect him in a way that's not allowing pressure and hits and hurries on 50% of their snaps right now, which they're doing for Jacoby Brissett. So I think this is fine, even if it takes a full year. I don't think it will. Mm-hmm. I think he'll start either later this month or next month.
Yeah, I think I've set it out there at 6 games under 500, he hits the field. So whenever that could be in 3 weeks.
That sounds right.
Sake. That could be 3, but it has to flesh itself out so that there is enough intel to say, well, it's not all Jacoby's fault, but he didn't make it any better. Let's put the other guy in. Because I don't think that Jacoby Brissett is working off what we could really say is that's the best information that we can gain on Jacoby Brissett. Right now, he's a tackling dummy. Leave him out there to be a tackling dummy. Give him a game when there is some semblance of offensive line protection. But that's all the current. I want to go macro here for a quick second. Here's Robert Kraft from the owners' meetings. You and I stood there talking about his aspirations for the 2024 Patriots.
My hope and expectations is to make the playoffs. That's something realistically. We have a new leadership team. We're going to have a lot of young players. We don't know. You know, a lot can happen. We might struggle more than I want, but the good news, and when you're running any business, is you try to figure out what the key variables are, and then you try to put people in place that you think can react and adapt to what has to happen. I really feel we have a good young team, and I just hope we don't struggle.
Andrew, the struggle is real. And it was hope against hope and whistling past the graveyard that the Patriots wouldn't struggle. And we knew that, and Kraft knew that. But what I look at with this offseason and this season itself, now that we're in it, we're realizing what a we'll see how it goes, quote unquote, approach works. And we've watched a quote unquote, we'll see how it goes approach for a long time here now. The Patriots' number one goal for the offseason, I believe, was removing Bill Belichick. When they did that, when they took out that massive tree that once bore fruit and now was choking out all the plants around it, once they took that out, they said, we got to see how these things do. We got to see how Eliot Wolf does, Matt Crow does. I mean, we've loved Gerard. We've already kind of committed to him. So we're going to put him in that spot. We'll see how it goes. And I don't know if that's a real sturdy plan. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I think there's an important point that's missed here, right? When Bill was saying, we'll see how it goes, his objective was to win as many games as possible every single season. He, in his mind, thought that they were going to contend, push for a wild card spot. They got it in 21, fell short, obviously, the last 2 years, failed miserably in 2023. This year, I think, to your point about the Garden, I think they're finding a new foundation. They got a whole new patch, and they're saying, okay, we'll pick up and root out Kyle Duggar and we'll transplant him over here. But it's a whole new patch of dirt. You're adding manure in there. And so what they're doing is identifying what they can carry over from what Bill had, but it's a whole new idea, a whole new foundation. So you're not expecting everything to be in full bloom right away because you know you don't have any plants on the offensive side of the garden. That's what they're doing. This is a whole foundation. Yeah, it's part removing Bill Belichick guys like Trent Brown and Devontae Parker and Mac Jones, who had no one on his side at the end. But the other part is we need to just start from scratch, and we'll take what we can, but everyone else is just going to take time to rebuild and regrow.
But Bill tilled that other area, so gardened it, harvested from it, that it had gone fallow. And now they uprooted those things who might not belong in the next spot. I mean, I look at Eliot Wolf and Matt Groh and say these guys were part of a personnel department that really demolished this team through the draft, free agency, et cetera. And they're being replanted over here to continue running the personnel department. And I think that is... I understand the let's see how it goes approach, but they haven't been high yield individuals. So much of the buck stopped with Bill, and I'm not totally blaming the Krafts for doing it this way, but so much of the buck stopping with Bill, they had no concept of who's usable and who isn't. So this year is about finding who's usable, and to watch it unfold is jarring.
Well, first of all, do we sound like a-holes talking about gardening? Like you at least have a plant behind you. I've never gardened in my life. I'm just imagining
like
that these things are possible.
Big time lawn
you
guy
do?
over here.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, good. So you know at least you're talking about. I'm trying to fake it till I make it. But I think the point is, again, The Patriots right now are taking a much longer term view. Like Drake Maye said, his first press conference at training camp, I asked him, what's success like this season? We want to find foundational pieces, guys to move forward, not wins, not playoffs, not even winning as many games this season. And I get that. And I agree with it. To the point about Eliot, I know there were instances where he argued for players and just fell flat in his face because Bill disagreed, and that was that. Matt Groh, I think you can lump into the Bill way of thinking. I separate Eliot not just because, those instances where he got shut down, but because he comes from an outside place. Like he's an outsider working in New England who the day he got installed as the de facto GM, ripped out the old scouting system and put in a new one. And this is how we're going to grade the draft. This is what we want in free agency. This is our new approach. So I think that takes time, the Packer way, as it's been coined, to put into place. And then you have failed efforts we see that Bill would have never made in a million years. You know this. Calvin Ridley, here's a bag of $22 million. Brandon Ayuk, how's $32 million sound? Bill never, ever, ever, ever would have done that. Now, they didn't sign him, either of those players.
Thankfully.
But, yeah, specifically in Calvin Ridley's place. But I would just say there's a decided difference between Eliot Wolf's vision and how he wants to run things and what Bill was doing the last 20 years.
Different, dubious levels of improvement. I mean, to sit there with a straight face and explain that the offensive line and the way they had staffed it, where they're drafting and signing right tackles to play left tackle, and it doesn't work out, it's dubious. And we will watch this continue to play out. Talk about the immediate with me, if you could, right now, Andrew. Here's Devon Godshaw talking on WEEI about the Patriots' defensive performance on Sunday at San Francisco.
I mean, we just all got to be on the same page, man. I mean, we got guys, just being honest, we got guys some guys just kind of being like kind of selfish, because guys, I get it. I mean, we're down, guys want to make plays. I get it, but everybody got to play. I'm talking about defense. Everybody has to play at 11, and everybody got to sacrifice to do what's best for the team. I know some guys want to make plays when we're down, trying to get back in the game, but we got to just keep going as a team and play team defense.
Do you mean, going for picks when they shouldn't, going for sacks when they shouldn't, or just kind of going away from like the design play call?
Just both.
Oh, okay.
Just both. I mean, just both. And we have a standard here to, hold guys accountable. I mean, if I'm not doing my job, coach is going to hold me accountable. My teammates are going to hold me accountable. Everybody just got to be as one, man. Because I get it. You get down and everybody want to make their play, and everybody want to get the big splash play that I brought us back in the game play. But at the end of the day, it takes a team, and nobody is good as an individual. We're good as 11. Like we don't have guys going out there being good as individuals. We have guys that have been good as 11, and that's on every unit: special teams, offense, defense. And I think once guys get there, I think we'll be okay. We have a really good team, but we don't show it for all 60 minutes.
You hear those comments from Devon Godshaw, and I was on EEI later on, and Jones and Keefe played that for me, and my first reaction was that this team could be teetering a little bit because the adversity has hit. Now you have players trying to play outside the scheme, and those who are doing so, quote unquote, trying to make a play are being deemed selfish. And for Drake Maye, who I do think has done a good job installing and instilling a certain culture, this is teetering a little bit for him as they lead into this week against Miami at 1-3.
I think that's fair. And it's funny when we talk about, okay, who is Devon Godshaw saying is being selfish? And I texted with my excellent colleague, Doug Kite of the Herald, about this last night after watching every single snap, charting all the plays. The number 1 and number 2 picks in the draft of who is Devon Godshaw talking about are Keon White and Josh Uche, because he specifically mentioned setting the edge. Keon White gets behind Brock Purdy in that first drive, goes for a scramble. What was the only thing we heard from the defensive players and coaches after the Jets loss? We can't let Aaron Rodgers get out of the pocket. Boom, there goes Brock Purdy. Uche lost edges against the run. So did Keon White. Those are younger players. Uche shouldn't be in early downs, but Anthony Jennings was hurt. So I'm not too worried in that sense. My issue, Tom, is the reason it's also teetering. It's not like, okay, you gave up a 16-yard run here and a scramble there. It's that the schemes put them behind from the get-go. San Francisco jumps out to a 20-3 lead. The Jets got a 14-3 lead at halftime. They're getting out coached. And so I know he's got buy-in. He's cultivated a good amount of buy-in, and that'll last him for weeks, if not months now moving forward. But at some point, the complaints are not going to be about oh, players are being selfish. It's we're not in the best positions.
Mm-hmm. And it's, when you talk about what position does Devon Godshaw play, he plays defensive tackle. Who's going to sell him down the river if he doesn't do exactly what he hopes the guy next to him at defensive end on the edge? So it would be hard for him to blame Jalen Hawkins, I would think, for making a selfish play at the back of the defense. Not that Jalen Hawkins did that. He was just overmatched. And that's the point that I'd make to counter the notion that they're getting out coached. It's really hard, and that's why Phil and I have been wrestling with this a little bit. Are they getting out coached, or are they trying to use Hot Wheel pieces to make a Maserati? Can't do it. Can't do it. And I think if you look at this team, go ahead. But no, give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. You got no Barmore. You got no Bentley. Duggar goes out. Surprise, surprise. Now there's a whole crap load of 30-yard completions on you. Offensively, Alex Van Pelt can't come up with anything to stop the bleeding. Alex Van Pelt can't come up with anything to spring anybody. Alex Van Pelt didn't order up Michael Jordan, didn't order up DeMontre Jacobs, didn't order up Layden Robinson and Caden Wallace, who I am reserving judgment on for the long term. But you get what I'm saying.
I do. And look, whether we're talking about the offense, defense, why they're 1-3, any list of problems starts, number one is talent. Like, the talent is the talent. No team in the NFL is trading their roster for the Patriots right now, maybe in the entire league. That's just what it is. But number two, when I talk about coaching, it's not just that you're not scoring enough points in the first quarter, you're not executing on defense, which to me speaks to game plans and your ability to impose your will in the game, like we saw in Cincinnati. It's the fact that I think the Patriots under Mayo understand how and what other teams want to do. But what Belichick was so good about, which granted, this is what you get when you spend half a century in the NFL, is understanding the why. Like, they knew Kyle Shanahan wanted to run outside. They spent a lot of time talking about setting the edge. But the why of Kyle Shanahan hammering the edge and wanting to get to 30 rushes per game, which I know Brian Hoyer's told you, talked on these airwaves, is he wants to eventually hit these big pass plays. But what the Patriots did on defense was to say, okay, we're going to stop the run. We know you like to run the ball. We know how you like to run the ball. It's outside. We're going to beef up and play 3-4. Kyle Shanahan goes, cool. I'm going to hit you over the top for 52 yards, for 45, for 38, and then 32, and get almost 300 passing yards, throwing the ball 20, 25 times. That to me is not understanding, okay, we'll let you take the body blows of 5 to 6 yards with pop, but we're going to deny the big passing play. And that's what happened in San Francisco. Kyle Shanahan got exactly what he wanted.
Do the Patriots have a chance to right the ship a little bit this week with Miami? One would presume that. But what indicators are you seeing right now that this is a temporary situation as opposed to a continuing decline?
Yeah, schedule is the biggest part of this, right? Like, anyone arguing against Maye starting or why the Patriots were going to be really terrible, the season started with, okay, you get Aaron Rodgers, you get the Niners, you get the Seahawks, you get the Bengals. They're 1-3 right now. The Dolphins are a mess. They lost to Will Levis and then Mason Rudolph, who came in that Monday night game, which honestly, I wish I had been gardening instead of watching that in my apartment last night. So to me, I look at this and go, you're at home. You're familiar with this team. The Dolphins can't score, don't score typically without Tua. You're in a position where you should be able to run the ball and be able to handle them on defense. If you don't, Houston's going to come in here with a doubly talented team, and at least you go to Jacksonville. So the schedule is your biggest reason for hope. The Patriots need to get healthy. Hopefully David Andrews isn't out for long, but I think whether it's the development of their young players, Jalen Polk actually looked okay in San Francisco. The schedule is the biggest reason, followed by those young players and their health, because those are the things that are really going to determine the rest of the season when you just don't have that much talent.
Give me more Keyshawn Booty, please. No more Tyquan Thornton. None. And I know it's not the same
Thornton
position.
has fewer catches than Ramondre Stevenson has fumbles. Stevenson has 4 fumbles, and Tyquan Thornton has 3 catches this season.
Tyquan Thornton has been targeted twice since the opener when he caught 2 balls, and he hasn't been targeted either the past 2 weeks, and he has no catches the past 3 weeks. It's not friggin' working. Andrew, agree or disagree? And this is the last little point I'm going to make. When we really look at the totality of the Patriots that we have watched from April until now, the times that they've looked good amount to an eye blink. That game against Cincinnati. It was just very, very important to look good that day. But in the timeline, it's about that long.
I give it a little longer than an eye blink, because you look at that Seattle game and you go, for most of that, they were going blow for blow with the team that was undefeated until Monday Night Football. And I think it's one of the better coached teams in the entire league. You block a field, you protect on one field goal at the end of the game. They have to go the length of the field and score a touchdown to beat you. That game mostly was good to me. The last two have been dog bleed. Like, that's just what it is. May also gives me hope, the small flashes we've seen. But as far as, okay, is it more bad or is it more good? Yeah, of course. It's a 1-3 football team.
But I'm saying, like, August was not good. I mean, watch that Philadelphia practice. There were occasions during. Yeah. And the only things that were, like, literally good was the rise of May at the end of training camp. That was that.
But I don't care about camp as much now, right? Like, it's October.
No, but
I care about games, the competitive games. Yeah.
I'm just saying the good occasions we've seen since the regime change has taken place are just glimpses and eye blinks. Sun breaking through the clouds, and then the clouds come back over again. So it's been a tough road. It has been a tough road. The struggle is real, and Robert Kraft hoped that the Patriots wouldn't struggle. They're struggling. Thank you, buddy. All right, great stuff from Andrew Callahan. Now let's slide over to Evan Lazar from Patriots.com to go inside the numbers a little bit on some of the Patriots' tendencies and what they can tell us about where this team is right now and whether or not they can reverse course. Evan Lazar. And here is Evan Lazar from Patriots.com. He is the host of the Patriots Catch 22 podcast. Always so great to look at your intel. I'm going to dive right in, Evan. How are the Patriots getting so easily outflanked defensively right now?
It's a good question. And it's something that I feel like is flying under the radar, Tom, because of how much we talk about the offense. But right now, just big picture, the Patriots are 25th in the league in EPA on defense. Last year, they were 8th in the league in that stat. So they've regressed quite a bit defensively in terms of how they're getting outflanked. I think it's a week-to-week thing, but third down, they're 31st in the league on third down right now. And just based off of the numbers, they're playing a lot less man coverage on third down, relying more on cover 2 zones and things of that nature with 4-man rushes. And one of
let me just interject. Is that a deviation from what they've done in the past in terms of just playing cover 2 and saying we're going to get home with our rush?
Yeah, definitely. I would say in the Belichick era specifically, they would use a lot of what they called their 5-0 rush package. So you'd have 5 guys up across the line of scrimmage with that single high safety in the deep part of the field with man-to-man coverage. And what they would do out of that 5-0 rush package is a lot of different stunts and games up front to get pass rushers free. And then they would always have one player who was kind of mirroring or spying the quarterback in the pocket to keep him in the quarterback. The problem is when you play those 2 high safeties in the deep part of the field, Tom, you take away that spy on the QB. So you see a lot of the same mechanics, but without that spy.
So just folks, for you to, if you're driving along or watching this, you get the 2 high safeties. That always means there's 2 deep. And what Evan's saying is Belichick would often rotate that safety, whether it was back in 2002 when he used to go big nickel with Victor Green or whoever it was to Bucky. They'd rotate that safety up to the linebacker level and just have Devin McCourty, for instance, standing, as Felger used to say, on the lighthouse. Now they're going 2 deep safeties. Right. And I ask you, Evan, have the Patriots maybe been slow to react to their personnel losses? They thought their team was going to look different August 1st than it does now October 1st. Have they adjusted to the loss of Barmore, Bentley, and the trade of Judon? Because this sounds like it would be better suited for those 3 dudes to be out there.
It's a great question. I think with Bentley, it's been a little bit slower, but that's in season. So that one's a little bit more difficult. I look at with Bentley and specifically is trying to stop the run at a too high. Now I think about in terms of run defense, you have that, extra safety like you were talking about, Tom, would be in the box historically with the single high safety up top. Now that safety's deep, so you're a man short in the box. Well, when you have a guy like Juwan Bentley or a winner up front like Christian Barmore, you might be able to play a gap down and get away with the fact that you don't have that extra hat. So that's a big part of what I think is happening in the ground game, along with them getting attacked in this past game against San Francisco in their nickel defense when they went 5 defensive backs. They have some smaller defensive backs in the back end, as we know, in Marcus and Jonathan Jones. The Niners put those guys right at the point of attack and made Marcus Jones tackle their backs and take on George Kittle and Jawan Jennings and some of their big receivers. And the Patriots pivoted out of those nickel fronts into a lot of base defense, and that's when Kyle Shanahan drew up the shot plays and started to throw the ball down the field. So that chess match right now is where the Patriots are struggling.
So a little bit of it is to do with the scheme. More of it, though, seems to be having to do with the Patriots players, who they have on the field right now, and the opposition's players. They're getting outflanked by the Jackson Smith and Jigba, DK Metcalf, smart quarterback Geno Smith, take what's in front of me and hit my guys, winning underneath. Then Rodgers, do you want to play off? Zing, zing, zing. And now Kyle Shanahan. So it seems to be a combination. These offenses have more to throw at the Patriots than the Patriots have to counter with.
Yeah, I would say that that's pretty accurate. Just going back to this Niners game for a second, I'll just give you some stats. So when they were in nickel defense on Sunday, they faced the run 12 times. The Niners ran for 81 yards on 12 attempts against nickel, which is almost 7 yards a carry. So the Patriots were getting gashed on the ground in their nickel defense with a guy like Marcus Jones in the slot, again, trying to take on those blocks at the point of attack on those stretch runs. So what the Patriots did is they went to base, where they only gave up 3.4 yards per carry. But unfortunately, that's when Purdy went to work, and he threw for almost 16 yards per attempt against base defense on Sunday. And all 5 of those explosive plays, those 20-plus yarders, were when the Patriots were in base. So right now, they don't necessarily have a great counter. I guess my one thing would be, I would almost just allow them to run the ball against nickel and try to hold your water a little bit longer there and see maybe if you can adjust and do some things mechanically up front to get away with the fact that you're a little smaller on the edges and not necessarily overreact by putting heavier personnel on the field. Because I'd rather give up, 5 or 6 yards a pop in the run game than give up 55 yards through the air.
I mean, right now they are somewhat at the mercy on third down of operator error on the part of the offense, at least the last 2 weeks with Purdy and Aaron Rodgers, and to a degree with Geno Smith. You're left just hoping that it's a bad throw, because you're in a position where you're not able to really exercise much of a pass rush, and you're looking for operator error. Bill Belichick, you might have heard, is gone. Steve Belichick is gone. Gerard Mayo's attention is now diverted to spending more time as the CEO of the entire team. Is there a brain drain impacting the schemes that DeMarcus Covington and the rest of his defensive staff are dealing with right now? And here's the thing, nothing's ever permanent, but anybody who thought it was going to be an easy transition just to give it to Covington, it would be smoking stuff.
Yeah, I would definitely say that that's accurate in terms of the brain drain a little bit. The big thing that I see is, Week 1, they come out against Cincinnati, and they were doing a lot of the same things they're doing now with the cover 2 and the different rotations in the back end. They're playing straight up cover 2. Sometimes they're inverting it and putting the corners deep, and the safeties are down low. And so they're trying to confuse quarterbacks that way. And Joe Burrow was flustered by this in Week 1. But the problem is as you know, Tom, you put this stuff on tape, and now all the opponents start to study it week in and week out. They see what you're doing, and they start to get a feel for what you're doing, and then they start to expose you. So what I'm looking for from DeMarcus Covington and Mayo is, now how do you counter back? Like, this is how the season works, right? You come out with something in the first month. It might take some people by surprise. Now, how do you react going forward, and how do you counter what they're doing? The Niners were just running receivers right up the chute of those split safeties, and they were carrying it deep. And then the crosser or the in cut was just kind of filling in at the second level. And when that happened, the second level was just opening up wide open. And that's how you see, Ayuk and Jennings have those 2 explosive plays. So what do the Patriots do? They start playing cover 3. And then they take the post, right? Like the deep safety, he comes down, he clamps down on the over, because that's what they've keep hitting. And then all of a sudden, once he clamps down the over, what's Purdy do? Debo Samuel on the post for 50 plus yards on a bomb. So those are the little, counter punches that some of these offensive coordinators and play callers like Kyle Shanahan, who obviously is pretty darn good at his job, that's what they've been doing to the Patriots. So now how does Covington and Mayo react, and how do they counter what these teams are doing against them will be telling.
Flip this then, basically the same conversation to the offensive side of the ball. You have two teams that the Patriots have just played who are do what they do kind of defenses. They just play their straight, normal, vanilla, say we're going to beat you with what we do, four-man rush. And Robert Saleh blitzed more than he had ever done as a head coach, defensive coordinator. And then the Niners come out and blitz happy as well, because they're just looking at it and going, well, we don't blitz, but it's like passing up a steak dinner if I don't blitz here. They can't stop us. Right. Why would I not blitz? So that's going to keep happening, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going to keep happening until you throw them out of it, really, is how I look at it, because not only are they blitzing the pass, but they're also run blitzing and aggressively attacking the line of scrimmage on first down. The Patriots right now on first down have the highest run from under center rate in the NFL. So teams know when the quarterback's under center on first down, they're more than likely running the football from those looks. You watch the very first play on Sunday against San Francisco, Tom, go watch how many 49ers just attack the line of scrimmage immediately when Jacoby Brissett turns around to hand the ball off to Ramondre Stevenson. So a big part of all of that is they're getting these single high coverages on the back end. They have the highest rate in the league of facing single high safeties in terms of the defensive structure. Nobody fears their deep passing game right now. Nobody fears that they're going to throw the ball outside the numbers or deep down the field. So they just are playing man-to-man coverage on the outside, 7-8 guys in the box. Now you can't run the ball either, so they're making the Patriots beat them left-handed, and they're failing to do so right now. So again, it's always a punch counter punch situation, and until the Patriots throw them out of these defensive structures and make those guys respect the deep passing game, they're going to have trouble running the football, and they're going to have pressure.
When was the last time opposing defenses defended the Patriots with two high safeties on a regular basis? Maybe a little bit in 21?
Yeah, I would say it's been probably since 2018 that they did it with regularity, and then
you can't live like that. You honestly can't live like that in the NFL in 2024 or the 2020s. To have no deep threat where teams can always just put the box, load the box up, and beat the hell out of your front.
No, you can. And the big reason why they did it that in 2018 even was just to protect the seams from Gronk, right? You know, when you play those split safety coverages, now if you run a seam route, you're going right into the safety on that half of the field. So if you play single high, then usually you can get that matchup maybe in man coverage or something like that with the seam route, and that's when they could throw the ball to Gronk up the seam. But I understand some people are not, you need that Randy Moss deep threat over the top all the time, but just the respect of, okay, they could hit a post here, they could hit a go route here. Those things open up everything about this offense, and it's pretty hard to see this offense getting some respected looks, if you want to call it that, with those two high safeties or the teams backing off in general without really playing Drake Maye. Like, it's really the only thing that they have on their current roster that makes me feel like, okay, teams might look at this a little bit differently.
They don't have to really defend sideline to sideline either. The Patriots could sufficiently weather the storm, I think, when they didn't have a deep threat here, not only because of Gronk, but because of the explosiveness and the outbreaking routes that a guy like Edelman could run, complemented by the interior routes by whatever back was in there, whether it be Burkhead, whether it be James White. So they could really do damage in the 54 yards from sideline to sideline. Right now, I mean, we're just not seeing perimeter throws, no tear screens, and it's hard to throw a perimeter throw when it's press coverage because you're putting the ball in the air, giving the corner a chance to break on a ball that's hanging there. And that, to me, that was one of the throws in the preseason. Evan, I'm sure you remember it. I think it went for a touchdown to the perimeter. Might have been to Kevin Harris that Drake Maye made. And yes. I said that's not a throw that Mac Jones could have made. And it wasn't really a slam on Mac Jones as much as it was, if you're able to throw the ball 62 miles an hour, footballs only go about that fast, maybe 62 to 66, the fast ones. If you're able to do that, it's going to beat the corner. But you can't beat the corner on a 26-yard throw when it's just going straight parallel. So they can't spread you sideways either right now.
Yeah, it's a great point. And one of the things, too, that I always like to make about those outside throws, if you want to throw like a hitch or something like that, even if you do get some off coverage, those throws are often determined pretty early in the snap, maybe even pre-snap, just based off of the way the defense looks. So one of the things that you see with Brissett is not a whole lot of anticipation on those types of throws, because he really wants to see it open because he doesn't want to turn the ball over. So some of those the time, yes, you might get, don't throw an out route on me, Jack Jones, right? And he pick six it on you, and that's always a worry. So if you're Jacoby Brissett, if you don't really trust it to just uncork it right away as you go in your drop, those outside throws, outside the numbers are tough to access unless you really trust it and want to let it loose. That's one thing that Drake Maye has trusted in his game, is that he can get it out there quickly. But once the defender, is breaking on the ball, or the receiver starts to break at the top of his route, if you're throwing it to him and the receiver's already coming out of the break on something like that, you're too late. So you have to almost make that predetermination before the ball is even snapped.
My general stance right now on Drake Maye and Jacoby Brissett is you're not giving Brissett a fair chance to exhibit what he could do if you had a competent offensive line in front of him. So you wait for that. You wait for things to settle, because right now they're churning. There's dust in the air still from the last 2 weeks. Let that settle. Let him have a couple weeks. And then when you happen to get significantly under 500, then you go to Drake Maye. But as the week goes along here and we find out that David Andrews is dinged, and we still are looking at Nick Leverett and crossing your fingers for Vidarian Lowe and hoping City So returns to being a fairly competent player, I wonder if the dust is ever going to settle. You sound as if you're basically saying, look, Jacoby, you'd put your hand on his shoulder and say, it's not your fault. You didn't get we didn't get the best situation for you, but we're going to have to try the other guy for a bit, maybe forever. Is that kind of where you'd be?
Yeah, I just think it's a compounding issue with this combination of factors. Like when you have an offensive line that's dead last in the league in pass blocking win rate right now, and that the quarterback is getting pressured at a league high rate, that's alarming. 47% of the time he's under pressure. And then you have a quarterback that tends to not really throw with great anticipation or timing in the passing game too. Those two things just don't really go well together. A bad offensive line that has a quarterback that has a little bit slower of a trigger figure. Now you have a league high pass, pressure rate in the passing game. With Drake Maye, it might not be, he might not be a master of reading coverages and pre-snap and getting teams in and out of plays and things like that. But the one thing that I've always seen with him on film is that he throws with great anticipation over the middle of the field. We saw that on the 4th down play to Pop Douglas against the Jets, and he can also move, and he's got great mobility. So you add that to your repertoire that maybe makes you a little bit more dynamic with a playmaker back there, that now on 3rd down, you're not 25th in the league in drop back success rate on 3rd down anymore, because Drake Maye is picking up a couple of those with his legs, or he's off script, improvising a little bit on 3rd down and allowing those receivers to uncover and making up for the fact that his right guard or left tackle just got beat in pass protection. If you put Brissett back there and you continue to do what they're doing, then you're just kind of, nothing is really succeeding at a high level, because these things don't mix well together. Play caller, line, quarterback, it's just not a good mix. So I don't really see anything else on this roster currently as it stands. They're not going to have Matt Light walk through that door at left tackle. So there's really nothing else that you can do besides put Drake in there.
It's funny. Michael Hawley and I have gone around a bit about this, and I've talked about willpower. The Patriots need to exhibit willpower. We knew it was going to look bad. And Michael and Phil Perry, too, have countered that part of being able to run things is to understand when you have to go to plan B, to show that you're not inflexible. And it might be time to say, look, we had a plan, and we would have loved to have stuck to that plan. But now we have to go to plan B, because factors within plan A have changed. And I would say that that's probably part of it. Your offensive line, your show from a guy like Tyquan Thornton, who had a nice summer yet again and is ineffective, the ability of anyone to really uncover. I mean, I would not assail them if they went to plan B, because plan A, I don't love you. Evan,
Yeah.
great stuff. I really appreciate your time and your expertise and your information.
Anytime, Tom. Thanks for having me.
All right, so that's a wrap. You guys, you heard no Phil Perry, and probably some of you are out there jonesing. I don't blame you. I would be too. I mean, 70% of the reviews that I get are saying, Phil's great, Tom interrupts too much. So I miss Phil too, okay? But I felt that Phil going to Santa Clara for the weekend, taking the red eye home, getting his ass to the studio on Monday, doing the breakdown with Ted Johnson, and then going home on Tuesday, he said, hey, you need me for the pod? And I said, you know what? I really would like to see you just bang out for the day. Just take the day, regroup, okay? You need a little time. And you know what Phil did? Texted me 37 times anyway. I still said, you're not coming on the pod. I'm going to go to Callahan. I'm going to go to Lazar. But we'll have Phil later in the week. Thank you guys so much for joining us. It's fascinating, isn't it? I mean, it's a bad team. It's not a good team. We all understand that. But the storylines never stop with the New England Patriots. Thanks for joining.